Well, hello everyone. My name is David, and this is Random Day Ramblings. I'm starting this first episode in a bit of a tizzy, some may say. I'm weirdly nervous to do this, and I've been putting this off for a very long time for reasons I'm not really sure. In my 23rd year of adulthood, yes. Finally, oh my God, well, in my early 20s, about to enter my mid 20s, which we'll get into later, I'm telling myself, if not now, when? If not now, when? If I'm not going to do something now in this stage of my life where I'm out of college, I've graduated, shout out to the class of 2024, Go Trojans. For some reason, my first instinct in that moment was to do some sort of call. Like, you know how some schools have like my a bird call? I don't know what it is, but they have some sort of like hoorah, something like that. I don't know, where it's a signaling to other people who went to the school, but I don't know if USC had one. But I graduated from USC in 2024 with my degree in accounting, my bachelor's of science in accounting. Shout out to being a STEM girly. And yes, I always have to add the bachelor's of science because I feel good about it. And I will say college was an interesting time in my life. For the girls who know, they know. A struggle. But I'm glad I got through that. Anyways, I wanted to start a podcast slash talk show for a very long time now, and shout out to Kate Poyer. Actually, let me go back first. Seventh grade. The summer going to seventh grade, Wendy Williams. The Brookline Projects in East Flatbush, my Aunt Edna. A summer of fun. I got into the Wendy Williams show, and ever since then, I've always told myself I wanted my own talk show. I love Wendy Williams, and I loved Wendy Williams at that time in my life. I used to watch Hot Topics on YouTube every single day, and I would keep up with all the drama. And I used to watch the compilations of her on YouTube, and I just loved her. And with that, I've always had this dream of like, I want to have a talk show. I want to have a talk show. Like, if I could have any dream job, it would be to like have my own talk show. And for the longest time, I was kind of against people having podcasts, and I am in many ways still against people having podcasts in the sense that why does everyone have a fucking podcast? You know what I mean? Why does everybody have a fucking podcast? But you know what? Why don't I have a podcast? Specifically, a talk show. Now, I am going to call this a talk show. I feel like I have to clarify that now because to me, this is a talk show. A show where I will be talking to myself a lot, which I will then also talk about considering the logo, which you will be seeing here. If I can figure out how to do that. If I can't, you're seeing nothing. But if you are seeing something. Anyways, I've always wanted a talk show, and yeah, with the motto, if not now, when, I randomly had the picture of the logo here. If you see it, it's there. If you don't, I'm so sorry. You saw it at the beginning, though. It is also the logo at the little bar here where you can go and subscribe. Thank you so much. Um, I saw the picture of the logo like very specifically in my head, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, I see it. I love it. I need to draw it." And I also had the name for the show come to my mind. It was either going to be Ramblings on a Random Day, which felt a little mouthy and a lot, and I was going to call it Rambles for short. Yikes. If someone steals that idea, I hate to hear it, but also be my guest. And or it was going to be Random Day Ramblings. Welcome to. And I asked my coworker Joy, shout out, she should be watching this, and if she's not, that's okay. And my good sis Joseph, and he should also be watching this, and if he's not, that's fine. But I would have sent them both these episode. I really wanted to consult the people I trusted, i.e., two people with opinions I think are good, and are honest. And they both said random day ramblings, and I agree. I also felt like the power of three, random day ramblings, three words, day, David, duh, love. And yeah, I don't know. It just felt very serendipitous. It felt like everything connected. And I see things very clearly in my head. Like, I don't want to call them visions, but I'm kind of psychic if you didn't know. I see very clearly the type of image I want, or the type of vibe I want to curate in a situation. And with that, I feel like I have to specify that this is a talk show, because to me, this is a talk show. I thought of the name when I was listening to Democracy Now, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report with Amy Goodman. And I thought of the name Random Day Rambles. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I saw the picture of the logo here again. And I drew it out and I was like, I'm gonna do this. I ordered this microphone from TikTok. I was looking at specific ones, but I started stressing myself out and I was like, you know what? I really want to do this. And I want this to be a passion project, and I want it to be something that can be low stakes and not something that I put too much pressure into perfecting, but really force myself to put myself out there and force myself to do something that's creative and using my brain in a different way. I feel like after college and post my journey in education, I've had a hard time finding myself. And I feel like a lot of people go through this in their 20s and in this time in their life where it's a transitional phase in their life. And you know, you're working a 9 to 5 for the first time. You're literally just in the workforce. You're just some adult, you're not young and hip anymore. Um you're not in your early 20s anymore. Well, you're leaving your early 20s once again. I'm about to turn 24. January 3rd. Shout out to the Capricorns in the room. If not now, when? I had the mics in my TikTok shop. Like, I was looking at videos and I added a bunch on Amazon, and I found this little like set on TikTok shop. I'm going to be using my iMovie skills from high school. Shout out to film production and Mr. Menta. Love him. Also, the reason I got into USC, but that's a story for another day. In a good way, not like he like rigged it. Like Miss Girl, Olivia Jade, surprisingly an alumni. Lots of alumni Trojans. Anyways, had it in my cart and I had it saved, but I hadn't done it. I hadn't ordered it. Like, I just wouldn't order it for some reason. I was just very spooked and apprehensive. And I don't know, I just kept coming up with 1,001 excuses as to why I didn't want to do it. And of course, I was listening to Kay Poyer, the voice of a generation, I will say, personally. Lady Miss K on TikTok. I was watching her YouTube video and she was talking about how she's on this journey of exploring different creative sides of herself and being ready to fail and being open to just going on different creative ventures. And I was on one of my walks, one of my hot girl walks, as I call them, on the weekends, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, like, I need to just do this. So I ordered the mic, and I did a little tester episode with my my good Judy Wesley, and insert clip here.
Talk about gay people not douching before a hookup.
Okay. And we did the episode, and it was fun. And then I didn't record anything else. I putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And you know what? I had to just do it. If not now, what? Should I make shirts? Merch? Ooh, merch idea. Find it on the Patreon. There's no Patreon. For anyone who's curious why I'm knitting, I'm creating a beanie. I'm doing 62 by 120 for my beanie. Mm, don't think it's gonna be big enough, I fear. I did a preliminary head fitting on it, like after I have been knitting for a while, and it didn't fit. It didn't close. It didn't seem like it was gonna close, and my hair was fine for anyone who may be having that question pop up in their mind currently, but it didn't work. Okay, this is future me cutting in. The beanie is finished. I actually did make it the proper size. And it does fit. Okay, that's it. Shout out to Blanca Garcia at LACC, who was my knitting professor. I took 4 weeks of knitting this past summer. Well, actually, I took the first knitting class back in April of this year, and I was supposed to take the four, and I only went to the first one, and then I missed the last three. But May was a busy month for me. I told myself I wanted to retake the class in the summer, but I could not miss any of the four classes. So I ended up going to all four this past July into August. I did indeed keep knitting from April to July, so I had knew the basics luckily, and I've been able to expand on that from the class, which I've loved. And I've really appreciated it. Knitting is a hobby I really, really enjoy and have really tried to keep up with. I'm on this journey of telling myself I need hobbies, or not need hobbies, but I needed hobbies. I couldn't just be a bitch who scrolled on my phone, which don't get me wrong, I am a bitch who scrolls on my phone all the time, but knitting is something I specifically wanted to get into for, well, two reasons. Reason number one, because I need something to do with my hands a lot, and that's why I'm always on my phone. I feel this, well, as many people do feel the intense need to scroll, but I also just feel like I'm very fidgety, and I like having something to do with my hands in general, so knitting works perfectly with that. And also, I love knitting because I'm obsessed with the knitting cult lady. Shout out to her, Daniela Messinek Young. She grew up in the Children of God religious sex cult and then went into the US Army. Her book, Uncultured, amazing. I listened to the audiobook. She reads it herself. Highly recommend. So, two reasons why I've gone into knitting. Love knitting. This is a beanie, 62 by 120. Biggest piece I've ever made. And I'm not even going to fit my head, but it's okay. We digress. Also, knitting is a perfect thing to do for multitasking. I will have been told not everyone can multitask. Shout out to my friend Aronda, my famous friend, unable to multitask, but one of my deep, deep obsessions and one of the many loves of my life. I know she's watching, so this was her. Shout out to her. I love to multitask. I love having something else to do while I do something, especially something that I think can result in a cute effect. I was coloring at the beginning of this year, but I did stop coloring for a cute little second. I have, I think it's object permanence issues. I have a hard time where if I don't see something, I like forget it's there and I won't interact with it. That's why I have a hard time with like certain foods. That's why I don't like having like a packed fridge because if I don't see certain things, like I fully just won't eat it and I like my brain will just like forget it exists. I don't know. I feel like that's maybe I don't know if I feel like everyone goes through that, but I've also been told by people that they don't have that and that it's very different. So maybe that's just a testament to the fact that everyone is different. And in this beautiful world, there can be unity in us, you know? Maybe that's what that means. But to me, I know that means that I'm a little quirky. So I kind of gave up coloring, and then my next thing was knitting because I actually tried knitting as a kid, but I just could not figure it out. My old, one of my favorite old ladies growing up was this old lady named Miss Sarah that my mom would see at work, and she ended up like talking with my mom because my mom attracts old people and babies, like the two people that like my mom like always attracts and that just like are obsessed with her. She would knit and I was obsessed and I wanted to start knitting because of her. And she also had a Miss Piggy um oh my god, this Miss Piggy teddy bear. It's all coming back to me. She had this Miss Piggy teddy bear and I was obsessed. Obsessed because I loved Miss Piggy. Miss Piggy was everything to me. She was my diva. And when her and Kermit broke up, I can't believe one that it was national news, but also like that's when I knew love wasn't real. That's when I knew that there's nothing more fatal in life than love and what it can bring to you and what it can take from you. You know what I mean? Isn't that crazy? Like, Kermit and Miss Piggy broke up, and that's when I learned love wasn't real. I don't know. Maybe before that or after that. The world may never know. But I just remember that moment was so impactful to me. I just wanted to knit, and I wanted that Miss Piggy doll, and I didn't get either. I got the knitting needles and I got the yarn, gave up knitting in like a week. I think I had to have been maybe like mm, mm, like 7 or 8. It's a great way to multitask. And also with being in my 23rd year of life, I really wanted to force myself to actually have hobbies and actually do things that weren't just voguing and working. You know what I mean? Especially after school, I prided myself on being an academic for so much of my life, especially through elementary school, middle school, high school, and honestly into the early parts of college. But I kind of stopped feeling like an academic, quote unquote. Like I stopped self identifying as an academic in honestly during COVID. It was during COVID, freshman year of college, COVID. Oof. It was just, I finally felt like, oh, I'm not good at school in the way that I used to be. And this shit is hard. Like, school was actually hard for me, and I was so gagged. Gagged. Specifically, my math class, but I had started hating math after a while in my life. Like, I used to love math. I used to say math in history, social studies were my favorite subjects, but it ended up just being social studies and English. I really wanted to find things that I could do. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love voguing. I feel like that is the original hobby and passion away from me feeling like, okay, like my thing. I mean, at the time I got into performance and Vogue and ballroom and dancing and blah 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 blah. That was literally 2021 or 2023. Oh my god, not 2021. That's crazy. It was 2023. It was 2 years ago. So I was 21. So it was in college at the time when I was getting out of one of my deepest, darkest depressions because of just life and school and just own personal bad mental health. And I ended up doing the Vogue class with another one of my best friends, Andres. And I had always been voguing around. I mean, I first watched Paris is Burning in the 7th grade. and it changed my life. And that's how I found out about ballroom and voguing. That's how I saw Tati, Leomi, and Yolanda and Alora and Mika and Sanaya and Ashley and Alyssa and Jada and just uh, I just I just got so obsessed. And then moving to LA and USC having the class, everything felt like aligned. I've been in it ever since then. Shout out to the House of Marc Jacobs and shout out to the House of Glossier, as I am the West Coast princess. I wanted to find an outlet in my life that was away from ballroom and away from that side of my life because it didn't feel fulfilling in the same way that it did when I first started. And I have felt very good about where I'm at in ballroom and the things I've accomplished so far, but there are more things I want to do in that. And there are also things that I feel like I need away from that as well. So I have picked up knitting to round out the beginning part of what I was talking about the pod slash the talk show. We can't get a podcast. Honestly, maybe I shouldn't. I need to just confirm with myself. It is a talk show. I mean, it is a talk show. It's also a podcast. Let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it cute. Let's keep it fun. Let's keep it fresh. Like, it's a podcast. It's a talk show. It's a fantasy. It's whatever you want it to be, if we're being honest. And that's kind of the mindset I'm telling myself to be in when it comes to this. It's anything I want it to be. This is for fun. This is to keep it cute, to keep it interesting, to hear myself talk, to have other people hear me talk without fear of embarrassment and without fear of maybe this isn't a good idea and maybe I shouldn't do this and maybe I'm whatever the case may be. Like, I will come up with 1,001 reasons as to why I shouldn't do something. I'm just a girl. I'm just a girl who is like many people, perpetually afraid of putting myself out there and actually seeing what comes from it. You know, maybe nothing comes from it. Maybe nothing comes from this and no one listens except for my friends and it's just fun and I love that because this is for me and maybe a lot of people listen and that's fun too. This is for me at the end of the day and yeah, I really wanted to try to force myself to do an episode and just put it out. This did not go the way I originally planned in my head. I did want to talk about a specific topic. As you can tell, I kind of not to say rambled. Ding, picture here, but I did kind of just start talking about God knows what for a second there. I did have a topic which maybe I will start off with at the beginning of next episode. Maybe I'll have a guest, someone to bounce off of. I did have the idea, or I didn't have the idea, a friend had the idea that I should go to the park and try to just like talk to people and just like ask them questions and see what they say. And I'm intrigued by that. Love being outside. I love people watching. So it'll be intriguing to see if I could kind of like find people who would be down to like have conversations with me about kind of like random topics or specific questions. The first question, well, the first thing I have in my notes is I finally understand what it feels like to want to chase youth and that feeling of wishing you had more time. But with that, we're out of time. So, thank you guys so much for listening to Random Day Ramblings. I'm really excited to see what comes out of this.